The gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
I had the clerk read the whole amendment because it's just one sentence and it's very simple. It says none of the money in this act can be used deliberately by the president to violate the law. In particular, the War Powers Resolution, often referred to as the War Powers Act, which is found in Title 50 of the United States Code. Why is this amendment necessary? Because so many administrations have embraced the idea of an imperial presidency, have embraced the idea that a United States president can send our forces into battle for an unlimited duration, unlimited in scope, and for whatever purposes the executive branch finds worthy. The War Powers Act is the law of this land, and it says that a president may indeed commit our forces, but must seek congressional authorization and must withdraw in 60 days if that authorization is not provided by the vote of both houses of Congress. But this president, like some others, believes that he doesn't have to follow the law. And in fact, in this case in Libya, we and our allies were not attacked, but rather a very important purpose, or thought to be important by the president, presented itself, and so he committed our forces. Now, the respect that the executive branch has for Congress has called upon them to hide their contempt for the law. And so they've implied, without really stating it, that there are substitutes for a congressional authorization. They've implied that resolutions by the United Nations, the Arab League, or NATO is a substitute for congressional action. And they've implied that consulting with congressional leaders, a lunch with leadership, is a substitute for an affirmative vote on the floors of both houses. It is time for us to stand up and say, no, Mr. President, you actually have to follow the law. Now, why am I amending this bill? Obviously, this amendment is even more apropos to the Defense Appropriations Bill, but we'll be dealing with that many weeks from now. And the President has been in violation of the War Powers Act for several weeks now, and so we should try to act now. But in addition, this amendment ought to be put on every appropriations bill that we pass this year. Otherwise, we invite a president who sees this amendment only on the Defense Appropriations Bill to try to find creative ways to transfer money from the Coast Guard account to the Navy, or transfer a ship from the Navy to the Coast Guard, or the Coast Guard to the Navy, one way or the other. We should not invite an unproductive loophole hunt. We should have the same restriction on every appropriations bill. Now, if we can pass this amendment by a significant vote, the president will, I hope, request an authorization for the action he wants to take in Libya. And he will have to accept an authorization that I believe will be limited in time and scope. Perhaps it will be limited to air forces and not ground forces. Perhaps it will require renewal every 6 months rather than being permanent. There may be conditions, such as, why are we funding this out of taxpayer money and not the $33 billion of Gaddafi money that he was stupid enough to invest in the United States in ways that we could find out about and freeze? And why has the transitional government in Benghazi refused to disassociate itself from the al-Qaeda fighters and the Libyan Islamic fighting group fighters in their midst? Why will they not remove from their government those who support those who have American blood on their hands from Iraq and Afghanistan? This is not just an issue of an aggrandizing president. It is also an issue of dereliction in Congress. Because, yes, we'd like to avoid tough votes, particularly those that divide our constituents and even the constituents that we have from within our own party. But this is our constitutional duty. The War Powers Resolution is the law of the land. Whatever your views are on our activities in Libya, you ought to support this resolution. I, for one, could support an authorization to use force that was carefully tailored and severely limited. This amendment vote is not about democracy and the rule of law in Libya. We all long to see democracy and the rule of law in Libya. This vote is about democracy and the rule of law in the United
The
States.
gentleman's time has expired.